Mike Perry sucks. Now, I don't have anything against him personally. I just don't think he's a good fighter. Now, my opinion of him not being a very good fighter has been backed up by the fact that he's fighting Jake Paul on July 20th. Because if Mike Perry was good at fighting, he would never have gotten this fight with Jake Paul. Jake Paul is only interested in fighting guys who are A, old, B, not boxers, or C, they suck. So Mike Perry is 32, so he's not old. Mike Perry has some professional boxing experience, and he also has bare knuckle boxing experience. So we're only left with one option, and that is Mike Perry sucks, because he does suck. Jake Paul is only interested in fighting guys he knows he can beat. If he thought that there was a chance that Mike Perry could beat him, Mike Perry wouldn't have gotten this fight. We know that Jake Paul still wants that Mike Tyson fight, so if Mike Perry was a threat to Jake Paul not getting that Mike Tyson fight, Mike Perry wouldn't be getting the opportunity he's getting on July 20th. So Mike Perry is the perfect guy to be put in there against Jake Paul. He's almost the striking version of Dylan Dennis. Dylan Dennis is a clown who will play the game and show up and lose, just like he did when he fought against Logan Paul. He'll build something up with some trash talk, but when the fight comes around, it'll be nothing. It'll be a clown show, and Dylan Dennis will be on the losing end like he was against Logan Paul. Jake Paul is following that model. Let's get a guy who's a clown, who will play the game, who is a useful idiot who doesn't even know they're being set up. Now, of course, this fight will be a real fight. This fight is not rigged. This fight is not a fix. Nothing like that. It's going to be an actual fight. The fight's going to be real. It's just that the chances of Mike Perry winning this fight are slim to none. Mike Perry's been handpicked to play a role. He's been inserted to be a useful idiot in this circus. He's a clown, and where do clowns perform best? At the circus. And this is a circus. All these Jake Paul fights are nothing but content. This isn't for a world title. This isn't for the number one contendership to a world title. This isn't between two ranked guys. If this fight happens, great. And if it doesn't happen, the sport of boxing will go on, and no one would be disappointed if this fight between Mike Perry and Jake Paul never happened. That's because this is just content creation that happens to be in a boxing setting. So Mike Perry had to be cast in this role as the useful idiot to be put opposite Jake Paul, like when Logan Paul fought against Dylan Dennis. If Mike Perry were to win this fight, it wouldn't be because Mike Perry is good, it would be because Jake Paul is that bad. If Jake Paul can't beat a guy like Mike Perry, a guy handpicked to come in here and make things interesting, build the fight up, yes, the guy is more credible as a fighter than Dylan Dennis. Mike Perry has a lot more experience than Dylan Dennis, and Mike Perry is actually a striker. On paper, this is a more interesting matchup between Jake Paul and Mike Perry than Logan Paul versus Dylan Dennis, but the same outcome is expected. Mike Perry is supposed to take an L here, just like Dylan Dennis was supposed to take an L. Now, I believe it'll be a clean finish. I believe Jake Paul, inside of 3 rounds, will end up knocking out Mike Perry. I don't think there's going to be shenanigans where there was in the Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis fight. I think it'll be a clean finish where the fight will look similar to the second Tyron Woodley fight. It'll be something like that. But Mike Perry has been installed in this position because he sucks. And that's really the only piece of evidence I need to show you that he sucks, is that if he was a good fighter, he wouldn't be getting this opportunity. Now, as an added bonus on why Mike Perry sucks, here's something that I really don't even need to say, but since we're here, I might as well say it. And of course, there's more than just 2 reasons why Mike Perry sucks. This is just me going out the top of my head on why this guy sucks. And you already know this guy sucks if you'd seen him fight in the UFC, because that's my next point. If Mike Perry was a good fighter, if Mike Perry was a contender, if Mike Perry was somebody we should be focused on, he wouldn't be fighting in BKFC. He'd be fighting in the UFC. the UFC would have never got rid of him. Now, I know some people will say, oh, well, Mike Perry, he wasn't cut. He fought his contract out. Okay, whatever gets you through the night. The truth is, Mike Perry sucks, and if he was a good fighter, A, the UFC would have never let go of him, and B, he would have been able to win. Now, normally, guys go to what Dean Thomas, the commentator, ex-MMA fighter, what he calls the MMA graveyard. That's what he calls BKFC. I like to call it the MMA retirement home. But I understand what Dean Thomas is saying. So Mike Perry is a guy who's 32 years old. He's supposed to be in his prime. He's younger than a lot of guys who are champion in the UFC right now. Mike Perry is not supposed to be at the MMA retirement home. He's supposed to still be a contender in the UFC. The guy he fought last time, Thiago Alves, he had a long run in MMA. He fought in the UFC for many years. He was a number one contender. He had beaten a lot of great guys in the UFC. And then, of course, Father Time caught up with him, and he still has the fire to compete. It's just that it's not going to be within MMA. So he has to find a place to go. So he goes over, like a lot of guys, goes over to BKFC, where he's supposed to fight a guy who's in a similar situation as him. He's supposed to be fighting a guy who 10 years ago was a champion or a top contender or someone who was successful in the world of MMA. His most recent fight, he fought against Mike Perry, who's not supposed to be there. Mike Perry, if he was a good fighter, which he's not, he sucks. If he was a good fighter, he'd still be in the UFC. Mike Perry is not supposed to be at the MMA retirement home. He's supposed to still be in the UFC, either fighting for the belt, getting in a position to where he can fight for the belt, or being the champion, something along those lines. Someone who's 32 should not be fighting in BKFC. Hence why he sucks. If he was a good fighter, he'd still be in the UFC. Now, Mike Perry's done a lot of good things in BKFC, but the reason why he's doing so well in BKFC is because he's not supposed to be there. Why am I supposed to be impressed by him going and beating up a bunch of guys in what Dean Thomas calls the MMA graveyard? Why should that impress me? What would impress me is that, I don't really know about this Jake Paul fight. Beating Jake Paul means nothing to me. If Mike Perry goes out and sleeps Jake Paul, I'll be surprised, not because I look at Jake Paul like he's some great fighter. It'll be because he was supposed to lose. Jake Paul handpicked this guy for a reason. And the reason is that Jake Paul is supposed to knock this guy out and then go fight Mike Tyson. So I'll be surprised if Mike Perry wins, but not that surprised because Jake Paul is also not a good fighter. Now, in defense to Jake Paul, Mike Perry is the kind of guy that Jake Paul should be fighting. Guys who have 10, 11, 12, 13 fights in boxing, they'll run across a guy like Mike Perry. Even the guys at the highest level, Canelo, all these guys who you think are great boxers and are world champion boxers and you're fans of these guys, all the guys who you think are the elite of the elite have fought a guy like Mike Perry on their way up. So I have nothing against Jake Paul, and I actually think that this is good matchmaking on his part. But all I'm saying is if Mike Perry wants to impress me, he's got to finish Jake Paul, do something to get himself back into the UFC and make a run, and then I'll be impressed. If he can do that, then I'll take back everything bad I've said about him. But until then, Mike Perry sucks. So you've heard my opinion. Now I want to hear you sound off in the comments section below. Are you a fan of Mike Perry? Do you think he's a good fighter? Do you think he sucks? Have you seen him fight before? Or will this Jake Paul fight on July 20th be the first time you've ever seen him fight? Do you think he'll beat Jake Paul? Do you think Jake Paul will beat him? Whatever your thoughts are about this topic, hit me up in the comments section below. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on social media, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.